Hello you, welcome to Season 10, Episode 26 of the Ubuntu Podcast. In this episode, we're going to discuss what happened at OggCamp, stays at OggCamp. We'll also have some virtual private love and go over your feedback. I'm Alan, hello, and joining me this week is Mark. Hello Mark, how are you?
Hello Alan.
Good.
I'm quite good, thank you. Yes, I was a bit worn out until today, but now I'm nice and relaxed.
Super. Also, Martin. Hello, Martin.
Hello.
How are
good
you?
to be back. Yeah,
Super.
good, thanks.
And guest presenter and all-round awesome person, Jon. Hello, Jon. How are you?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you. Slightly tired, a bit like Mark, but, aside from that, little things.
I can't possibly fathom why you three are tired and I'm not, but we'll get to that later. First of all, Mark, what have you been up to?
In tiredness-related activities, I've been at OggCamp.
Oh, really? OggCamp,
Yes.
the premier free software and free culture event in the UK. You were there
Yes.
this weekend.
That's where I was.
And what happened?
I don't think I'm at liberty to say at this particular point in time. Maybe we should talk about it later.
Are we embargoed?
That kind of ruins this part of the show, but okay. All right then, Mark. Keep stum.
I gave
Martin.
some talks. I can say that much.
Well, I've been on holiday, and I'm back from holiday. I've also been at OggCamp, but rather
But we
exciting.
don't like to talk about that.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to talk about that.
Right.
No, that's hush hush. But I have received in the post my GPD Pocket pre-installed with Ubuntu.
In
drum roll.
English, what is that?
GPD Pocket is a very, very, very small computer. So it's an Atom computer, Atom chip powered
It's the size
computer.
of an atom.
Well, no, it's fortunately big enough that I can actually pick it up and type on it with my fingers. But it's got an Atom CPU in it, and it's quite tiny, apparently. Although I still have to get mine out of its packaging. I haven't actually got around to unboxing it yet, so have that to look forward
You
to
should
at
do it
some
on
point.
video. That's what all the cool kids do.
Yeah, cool.
Maybe
Kids.
not.
It's not really me, is it?
Will we be hearing a review of it in a future episode?
Yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll once I've got it out, I'll have a tinker with it, and I'll run through our usual sort of review criteria. And in a future show, we'll do a review.
And then you're
of
giving
that
it away as
unit.
a competition prize.
No, I shan't be doing that.
Oh, well, it was worth a go.
I look forward to that because they look quite shiny and nice, and I look forward to seeing what your real-world experience of the GPD Pocket atom-sized device is. Also, Jon. Hello, Jon. Welcome back.
Hello. Thank you very much.
What have you been up to since the last time we spoke, which was probably about a year ago?
Probably about a year ago. So I changed jobs at work and moved from doing operational things to doing offerings, development things. And one of the things that has involved me doing is I now get to play with Bash on Windows.
Ooh.
So the company I work for is exclusively a Windows house. After I got this new job, I discovered that actually I could really do with having Bash on Windows. So I got the benefit of being rolled up to Windows 10, and then installed through the whatever the backdoor channel was you had to do to get Bash on Windows
I
prior
think it's
to it
called the
being an
developer
official release.
channel, but yeah, okay.
That one.
Backdoor channel sounds way more fun.
It does, doesn't it? It's how it felt at work anyway. And then I installed Bash on Windows, and then I discovered that symbolic links don't work, and Fuse doesn't work, and all the fun things that I really wanted to do with it didn't work. And then, yeah, it's really annoying. So symbolic links kind of work, and then if you symbolic link a directory and CD into the directory you just CD'd into has the same directory inside it. So you CD into that, and it's a recursive list of down.
And this is a known upstream bug, I guess.
I have absolutely no idea because I just went rage quit back to
I know the other one you mentioned. You said there was another bug that you encountered. Was it Fuse?
Yeah, Fuse.
Yeah, I've seen other people mention that, and I think some months ago I was chatting to someone on another unrelated American podcast, and they were complaining that this was a massive issue, and I played it down because it didn't feel like it was a major thing, but it turns out lots of people are complaining about this thing that's missing.
So the main thing that I use it for is actually a really mundane thing that if I knew how to tweak the config files properly, it would all be fine. But I use SSH keys. that I move around between machines. And
Right.
so what I use bindfs to remount where my SSH keys are as 644 in a 744 600 file in a 700 directory.
Yeah, all of that makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's the chmod flags, so basically only my user can read and write to it, even though it's not strictly speaking like that. So that's why I wanted to use Bash on Windows.
Well, that sounds like a bundle of laughs, but we need to get on with the show.
Indeed, I'm very sorry about that.
That's okay. Let's get on with it.
And now we're going to interview Jon. He's that nice guy we were just talking to a moment ago. Yeah, it's him again. And we're going to be talking to Jon about OggCamp, in particular OggCamp 17. So, Jon, what is OggCamp and why on earth are we talking to you about it?
So, blimey, that's a loaded question if ever heard one. So, OggCamp is a conference that is a celebration of all things free culture, free and open source software. We talk about hardware hacking and digital rights and all those sorts of collaborative activities, which I literally didn't just load the OggCamp website to get that quote, because that would be a bit embarrassing, wouldn't it? OggCamp is an unconference, which means that the people who turn up on day one and on day two get greeted by in our case, a nearly empty schedule, and get asked to please take this stack of post-it notes and Sharpies and write a talk. Yeah, make us an event for us. So I'm the primary organizer. There is a mailing list of people that I was able to back questions off to. And the main person that was collaborating on it with me was Mark. There was feedback from other prior organisers as well, but
So in prior years, Tony Whitmore, Mark, and Dan Lynch have organised them around the country, and this year it fell upon you.
Yes.
Everyone else stepped back, and you were left there.
Well, so I've been loosely aware of the organisation side of things for a few years. The second OggCamp and up until OggCamp 15, we actually used the talk scheduling software that I wrote, and I might even have talked to you guys about in prior years, which was a tool called Campfire Manager. I also crewed 1 year, and it's one of those events where it's entirely about the community, and not wishing to turn into John O'Bacon. The community, without the community that goes to OggCamp, there is no OggCamp.
Yeah.
It would just be another unconference. An OggCamp's something for me quite special. And so in 2016, probably around about January, February time, it kind of became clear that Dan Lynch, who'd previously organised, Les Pounder, who'd worked with him, both of those guys said that their life situation was such that they couldn't take OggCamp on, and that basically everyone else that was on the organisers list, again, were not in the position to be able to take it on. A few of us replied to say they'd be interested in going forwards with it, and helping with it. And by about sort of 2 or 3 months after that initial mail came out, it was obvious that I was the pushy one that was kind of driving the way that the conversation was going. Awesome. And so I said I'd run it.
So where was it this year?
So OggCamp was in Canterbury, in Kent, in the UK. It was housed at the King's College. Was it King's? No, Christchurch
University.
Christchurch University in Canterbury. I don't know what. Every time I've been talking to people about the event, every single time I said King's College. No, not King's College. Christchurch University, and we were very, very fortunate in that one of the members of staff, who is, I think he said he was a program director at Christchurch University, an amazing guy called Toby. He actually approached his university and said, I'd like to help OggCamp run at this venue this year. So he actually set up everything to do with the venue for us, including getting it for us for free, which turned Christchurch University into our sponsor.
And that's quite a significant chunk of how much OggCamp spends. Like, I remember when we did it in Farnham, and Mark can talk about Oxford, it's a huge amount of cash to have an event with multiple rooms and all the stuff that goes along with it. It's a ridiculous amount of money. So that makes it an awful lot easier to run the event when someone else is willing to sponsor. And I guess in Liverpool, it was made easier by university up there, making it easier for us by sponsoring the event as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that became quite apparent was that, the sponsor list for this year was relatively quite short because of the fact that, we didn't need to find, what feels like probably double the amount we spent this year. If we'd have had to find double that on top of what we spent to run the event this year, that would have meant a lot more work for me ultimately. So I am very exceptionally grateful to CCCU.
So
just really helpful.
We understand that OggCamp's an unconference, and this year it is in Canterbury. But what happens at OggCamp? Take us through a day. You're a delegate. You arrive at OggCamp. What happens in your day at OggCamp?
So people navigate themselves to the university. They get through the front door and present a ticket if they have obtained one. And let us know that if they haven't, because not everyone needs to have a ticket. Ultimately, it makes our lives as organisers much easier if people have tickets, but if they don't, it's not a problem. So they present their ticket. They get a sticker even to put on their t-shirts to say who they are, which isn't a requirement, but again, it helps if people know who you are. You file into the main auditorium. There is a welcome speech, and then you are directed to where the schedule board is, and a group of people will have put talks onto the schedule board. OggCamp is a little bit unusual for an unconference in that we have a scheduled track. So at CCCU this year, we had 3 tracks. The first track was nominally scheduled, so we had I think all bar 3 of the slots, the talk slots, had a scheduled speech on it. But so the rest of the board is then marked as is empty, basically. So delegates would turn up with a post-it note and a Sharpie in their hand and write about the talk they want to give, put it onto the bottom of the grid under the time slot they want to talk in, and people will tick those talks and move them, and then an organiser or crew member will figure out how many ticks are in each slot, in each talk in that bar, and then put them into the right rooms.
So typically, at an unconference, you don't have a scheduled track, but we did. And I think we've always had one because we've always worried that we wouldn't, like, we've always wanted to have some guarantee that there would be people giving a talk there, right? Like there would be, like, that you wouldn't arrive and there would be no content. We always wanted to have some guarantee, right?
I wouldn't necessarily say that was the case this year. I mean, it might be what happened in the earlier years, particularly as members of the OggCamp attending fraternity may not have known what an unconference was. For me, it's more about so basically, I contacted I think 90% of the people that were speaking on the scheduled track, and for me, it was about projects that I thought would be of interest to people that I've spoken to at OggCamps before that may not be aware of the fact that OggCamp exists.
So seeding it with people who haven't been there before, so new and interesting content rather than, oh my god, we might not have content at all, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, of the entire schedule, I think the very first slot on the very first day had no unconference talks put in. Predominantly, I suspect, because people either didn't realise that was where the grid was,
they weren't ready, and it wasn't.
They weren't
prepped
ready to go. Yeah.
So what went on for because obviously of you three, of the four of us, I'm the one who wasn't there. What went on for the other ones that weren't scheduled that I couldn't find out about on the website, like the stuff that happened on Post-it notes? What happened?
Interestingly, and I'm hoping by the time that this show goes out, I'll have fixed at least some of that. So we were using a project called Joined In, which is run by one of our OggCamp attending fraternity, a lovely lady by Lorna Mitchell. So she runs a website called Joined In, which is a talk scheduling piece of software, so that people can sort of rate the talks that they went to and things like that. Now, as it turns out, not many people actually used that website this year, so that's a failing on me as an organizer to tell people that's, basically force that one down through people's throats a little bit more. So the schedule actually, because it's a little bit easier, was going into Joined In as a way for people to actually see what was going on outside the schedule, outside the event rather.
Right, but no, sorry, you misunderstand. I'm asking for those people who are not there, like me. Can you tell us what happened there?
Sure. Okay. We had talks by established names in the community. So Martin Wimpress gave 3 or 4 talks. A certain guy who's on a podcast, a little known podcast, and has something to do with an Ubuntu respin or something.
I've heard of him.
Have you?
What sort of content could you expect if you turn up at OggCamp?
So we had off the scheduled track, we had somebody gave us a talk about staying positive in a digital world. There was a podcast about robots using Raspberry Pis. I think that's what that was about. There was a talk on open source beer. There was a talk on international law and cyber war, which is interesting.
There was one about translating a PlayStation game from Japanese to English.
Yes. We had there were talks. So I gave a talk, a particularly badly fated talk on encryption. But then on the scheduled side of things, we had an amazing lady from GDS who turned up to talk about how gov.uk kind of runs and how they do things. We had Richard Brown from the OpenSUSE project.
Oh, what did he talk about?
Strangely enough,
talks, didn't he?
He did. He gave a talk.
I think he did 3.
Did he do 3?
I think he did 2 on conference talks and his scheduled talk.
What were they about?
Well, he certainly did one on the sort of the overview of OpenSUSE as a project and sort of all of the moving parts around the community and the technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He did one on OpenQA.
That was particularly good. I really enjoyed that talk.
He did one on OpenQA and one that was called something like How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Rolling Releases, I think was his third one. So outside of the actual talks, there were some social events as well, weren't there?
There were. So we had a social night, what was referred to as the official, unofficial Friday night social at one point, which was basically where people who aren't, who get there early, go to the pub the night before. That was at the ballroom, which was half bar, half ping pong table arena.
Yeah, that was unexpected and unusual.
Yeah.
Yes, and weirdly hard to find because you had to look for exactly the right sort of label on the door outside.
Yes, it didn't say ballroom anywhere.
No,
as it turned out.
Then the Saturday night was at the Students' Union bar called The Lounge, which we had to ourselves and was a really nice
big open space with pool tables and cheap drinks of every flavour and variety.
Yeah. I think they got a bit fed up with everybody ordering the locally brewed ale in bottles. I went up to the bar at one point and said, "I will have and the barman said, "Chapel Ale." Like as I said it, I think that it was a bit unusual for them to sell so much of that.
He would have been quite surprised by the fact that I wasn't drinking it then. Never mind. And then Sunday night we had a last minute scheduled drink at the Foundry, which was a brewery pub. So actually, just off to one side of the bar was the vats that they brew the beer in, and all bar
Awesome.
2 of the taps were actually brewed at that pub, which was nice.
Awesome. So, what would you say was your favourite moment from the weekend?
So I've there's a couple of different ways of sort of skinning that particular cat. So one of the nice things that we've had at OggCamp, I think might have been right from the first one, is because the unconference format is a 25-minute slot, and there's a chance that people who wanted to talk, and this might be the first time they've talked, they might not have wanted to stand up on stage and talk. We actually run a lightning talk session, so people get to sort of stand up and talk for 5 minutes and have one question. And everyone that I've spoken to about the lightning talks, the thing that they talk about was a young lady, and it was the first time she stood up she said it was the first time she stood up in front of a group of people and spoken about herself. And she kind of, I don't know how to describe it. She basically blew every expectation out of the water. So she stood up and she was covered in badges,
flashing wearables.
Yeah, flashing wearables.
Yeah, and I was certain that she was about to tell us about how she made all of these flashing wearables, which she did say she actually made. And then I was expecting the rest of the talk to follow on down that road, and then she sort of took a course change entirely and told us about her professional life.
Yeah, so it was it felt like she wasn't sure how to kind of describe herself aside from, this is my day job, and then she kind of went, and then this is how I made all these things. But so it was clear that she wanted to talk, and the fact that she stood up and talked was amazing and brilliant. And she was Konnichiwa Kitty on Twitter. And her day job is she's a stem cell scientist, and everyone kind of went, "Oh," and she said, "So I get organs from cadavers," and everyone went, "Oh," and I strip the genetic material from them and inject genetic material from people who need organ donations. My intention is to stop people needing organ donors, and everyone kind of went,
Okay.
reset. And then she said, "But I found I like doing this thing as well, which is to make wearables. And I really like making wearables because I can't remember the exact content, but effectively because I think they're pretty and I think they're awesome, and it's teaching me about these things, and I'd like to talk to people about them." And it was just outstanding. That
what I liked about that talk in particular is aside from the impressive professional impact she's having, she came to OggCamp and she used the Lightning Talk as a place just to say, hello, this is me and this is what I do, and as a way to introduce herself and hopefully get to meet some more people at OggCamp. And I think more people should consider doing that when they're new to OggCamp, to sort of get to know the other people at OggCamp.
Yeah, it is a bit like, it seems like maybe that's something that we should try and encourage next year without turning it into a horrible forced icebreaker session.
Yes.
Right. So, is there going to be an OggCamp next year?
So I was coerced into saying that there was. There will be.
And on that bombshell.
More details to follow.
More details to follow. Yes.
Excellent.
Are you looking after your bits? If you are, help your fellow listeners keep their bits safe too. If there's a VPN or privacy service that you've found useful, email your virtual private love to show@ubuntupodcast.org.
So, I thought I'd monopolise my time on this segment by talking about a virtual private love that I have, because I work in network security. So I don't particularly want to hide what I'm doing from specific named groups. I just want to protect my bits when I'm out at a pub.
Right.
And as I run a server of my very own, I figured that what I would do is actually try and run my own VPN server. And having tried to roll up all sorts of weird and wonderful combinations of OpenVPN and IPsec tunnels and insert other random project name things here, I eventually found that there was this amazing set of Ansible scripts called Streisand, and it's on GitHub, github.com/jlund/Streisand, and effectively you can spin up an AWS, Azure, EC2, DigitalOcean, a handful of cloud provider boxes or your own box, and it loads just about every possible VPN product that you can get in the open source world onto that box. So it runs IPsec, OpenConnect, it runs an OpenSSH VPN service, OpenVPN, ShadowSox, SSLH, S-Tunnel, it brings up a Tor bridge, and it runs WireGuard, and it has custom instructions for each of those services.
So do you have to manually configure all of these things? Because I would imagine that's quite painful.
No, you literally, I think the README says, if you're going to run it on EC2 or basically one of the cloud platforms that it knows about, run that particular cloud Ansible script. And if you're just going to provision it to your local host or a machine you've got access to, edit the hosts file in the Ansible script and then just run this one instead. And it literally just goes in and goes chug 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 chug, done. Here's a local file on your machine that tells you what the credentials are to get into everything.
So, let's say for example, I want to set this up. I've got a DigitalOcean droplet or something that's under my control, home server, whatever. I install this thing, and I tell it all the different types of VPN I'm interested in, and then I go traveling. And I take the config with me and set my laptop up. And while I'm away, I can connect to it using any one of the... So if any one of them is blocked, I can pick a different one, basically.
Correct.
Huh.
That's handy.
Yeah.
Have you used this yourself in anger?
Yes.
And how well does it work?
So I was deploying it in a slightly odd configuration because that's the kind of geek that I am, which was that I actually wanted to run it inside a Vagrant machine on my home network, because that's how I isolate all my different stuff, because I'm weird and I haven't learned Docker yet. And aside from the mild complexities of applying it in that way, you run a script, it says, I want these details, duff, right, now run Streisand.
For normal people who don't do the weird stuff that you do, John, would it be more straightforward?
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. It basically goes, what cloud platform are you using? This one. And then it says, give me your credentials.
Nice.
And then off it runs. It is genuinely a really straightforward process to build every VPN product under the sun.
Lovely. Thanks for that command line, love.
That's all right.
Did you know you can come and chat with us and other listeners in between shows? Come and join us in our Telegram group at ubuntupodcast.org/telegram.
And now it's time for all your wonderful feedback. First up, Jason Armstrong emailed to show@ubuntupodcast.org.
So Jason said, I installed Ubuntu Mate 17.10 Alpha 2 and holy moly, it's great. It's hard to believe that it's an alpha. I can't wait to see it in its completed form in October. I was unable to get Minecraft to install on Ubuntu 17.04, so having it preloaded in the boutique was an added bonus. You've made my 11-year-old munchkin pleased as punch.
Oh, thanks for the kind words, Jason.
That's very kind, isn't it?
Nikolai Mladenov posted a comment on our website, ubuntupodcast.org.
This is the first reasonable report about Red Hat deprecating B3FS I've heard so far. SLES uses B3FS as default, like OpenSUSE as well. And the following sounds to me as though there haven't been any updates from Red Hat for B3FS since 2012, which is sad for Red Hat and not for B3FS. So I think this is a callback to when you covered this news about Red Hat deprecating support for this file system. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
Next up, the Hatterman emailed.
I worked in Uruguay about 10 years back. Amazing place. Everywhere I looked, people were drinking from a straw, protruding from little silver travel mugs. And I mean everyone. I was out with a colleague one glorious hot afternoon and felt I knew him well enough at this stage to inquire about this mysterious elixir. It's Mate, pronounced Mate as in Carmat, the letter A. I don't think that made it any clearer. He said, try some.
I think he means Matt A.
Yeah, okay. He said, try some. Not wanting to offend, I wiped his gop and drool from the protruding straw and took a large gulp. The head rush didn't hit me for a moment or two. When it did, I thought, my God, this is like my first gulp of cheap, quick save cider back in the glory days of my youth. I think that's a compliment. I didn't take another gulp, and I no longer drink cheap cider. I just wondered if Martin had the honour of trying this strange herbal refreshment.
Now, I haven't actually tried.
Have you not?
No, I haven't actually tried proper Mate. The closest I've come is Club Mate, which is very popular in Germany. But I think you've tried it, haven't you?
I have some, yes. I have some Mate and I have a gourd and I have the stupid silver straw thing that he mentions and the ludicrous preparation that you have to do to get the thing like all set up. It's not pour it into a cup and drink it. It's like a special way. If you've ever seen the way Chinese people do traditional green tea, it's very much like that. You put a small amount of water in and you turn it and you roll the gourd in a certain way and then you put some more water in. And I've watched people at work drink this. Mostly the South Americans drink it. And there'll be one of them who makes a gourd of Mate and they have a flask full of hot water and he will top it up with hot water, drink a bit and then pass the gourd to the next person and they will sip from the same straw and then they'll pass it around. 3 or 4 of them will pass this one cup around between them and then one of them will top it up with hot water for it to steep, that's the word, yes, for it to steep for the next person. It's quite a bizarre ritual, but they all seem to enjoy it, so you know.
Right. So next time I'm over at yours and you offer me a cup of tea, I'm going to politely decline and request Mate then.
You can request Mate. Unfortunately, my gourd has a hole in it, so it leaks. So you might have to have it out of a OggCamp mug, unfortunately. Which is not as traditional, but I've still got the silver straw thing, the weird silver sieve straw thing. But if anyone else knows a good way to get hold of a gourd in the UK that doesn't have a hole in it, I would love to hear it, because I'd like one. Yes.
And finally, David Purse tweeted at Ubuntu Podcast.
He says, I love the Ubuntu podcast, but I think Google needs to redefine what it considers recent.
Yes, now this is a slightly odd thing that we've come across, whereby if you on Android, if you search for a podcast in the Google app, it'll find the website and then show you a list of episodes which you can play and subscribe to. However, with our podcast, it finds the old website and shows the feed on that as the most recent episodes. And even though it finds our new website, it doesn't show the feed. Unfortunately, Google don't seem to document how it finds the feed. So we're going to have to do some trial and error to try and see if we can
or just shut down
it to, or just redirect it. Something like that anyway. I'm sure we'll come up with something sensible.
Alexa, what is Ubuntu?
Honestly, I did mean to do that.
I don't know what you did.
That's all for episode 26. We will be back next week when we'll have more news, comment, and discussion. And don't forget, we have a contest to win a laptop. Remember to go back and listen to episode 22, I think it is, to learn how you might be able to win it.
Yes, your time is dwindling.
Yes. Thank you, John,
No
for
worries.
joining us, and well done with OggCamp.
Thank you,
We'll
John.
see you again
I'm
soon.
looking forward to OggCamp 18.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.